Look, I'm not here to motivate you with fluff. I'm here to tell you what actually works. Success isn't magic, it's systems, decisions, and habits. People ask me how I stay productive across SpaceX, Tesla, Neuralink, and more. The truth, it starts every morning. Your first 60 minutes are a launch pad. You master that. You control your trajectory. These are the 5 things I do every morning, not because they sound good, but because they work. Waking up before the world does isn't about looking impressive. It's about having leverage. When I get up early, usually around 6:00 a.m. or earlier, it's not for the sake of being part of the 5 a.m. club or following some social media trend. It's strategic. The earlier I wake up, the more time I have to operate in silence. No calls, no emails, no meetings, no noise, just pure, uncut mental bandwidth. That's where clarity lives. That silence in the early hours is the most valuable real estate for thinking. While most people are still asleep, I've already won the first part of the day. The world hasn't demanded anything from me yet, which means I still control my own narrative. This window of time allows me to create instead of react. I can decide how to direct my energy before anyone else has a chance to pull at it. Think of it like a rocket preparing for launch. You don't light the engines when the tower is full of chaos and distractions. You light the engines in calm, controlled conditions. Waking up early also forces discipline, and discipline compounds. If I get out of bed when I said I would, without negotiation, that's a win before I've even brushed my teeth. It's a signal to my brain that I'm in charge, not comfort, not convenience, me. And when you start stacking those small wins, you begin to develop self-respect. People underestimate how much their own self-image is tied to the little agreements they make and break with themselves. If you snooze your alarm 5 times, you're not just tired, you've already started your day by losing a negotiation with your weaker self. And that matters, because how you do anything is how you do everything. So when I wake up early and follow through, I'm aligning my identity with action, and that identity builds momentum. Another reason I wake up early is because of decision control. Mornings are the only part of the day where no one else is injecting variables into my life. Once the day kicks off, there are meetings, emergencies, distractions, and obligations. But between 6:00 and 8:00 a.m., I'm the only one designing what happens. That autonomy is powerful. It allows me to be intentional, not reactive. I can use that time for mental priming, reading, reviewing data, or just sitting with a notepad and solving problems quietly. That uninterrupted clarity is where most of my best decisions are born. It's where ideas are free to form without the pressure of instant execution. It's not just about waking up early, it's about using that time wisely. If you wake up early and scroll for an hour, you've just sacrificed golden time on garbage input. That's not leverage, that's loss. So I treat that window with respect. No noise, no social, no outside influence, just focused awareness. There's also a mental edge that comes from knowing you're ahead. It's not arrogance, it's quiet confidence. When I'm up while others are asleep, I feel like I have a head start. It's psychological, sure, but it works. It feels like I'm pulling away from the pack before the race even starts. And if you repeat that pattern daily, over months and years, you create massive separation. Not just in work output, but in mental development. You become someone who's used to leading, not following. Someone who sets the tone, not reacts to it. That's the goal. And yes, waking up early is uncomfortable. But comfort is overrated. You don't build rockets from comfort. You don't innovate from comfort. You don't lead from comfort. You build from pressure, from focus, from intention. And that begins the moment you choose to stand up and take the day before it takes you. This habit also influences how I sleep. If I know I'm waking up early with a purpose, I don't waste time the night before. I don't scroll mindlessly or binge, watch for escape. I treat sleep as recovery, not entertainment. So, my nights are scheduled with the same discipline as my mornings. Sleep is fuel, not luxury. And when sleep is dialed in, waking up becomes less of a battle and more of a transfer of power from rest to action. That transition is seamless when you treat both ends of your day with intention. Waking up early isn't about hustle culture or pretending to be superhuman. It's about building conditions for dominance. It's about carving out time when the world is quiet and your mind is loud. That's when breakthroughs happen. That's when big ideas sneak in. That's when the real game is played before the noise of the day takes over. Decision fatigue is real, and it's one of the most silent productivity killers out there. The average person makes thousands of decisions every single day, and every one of those decisions consumes a bit of mental energy. The problem is, most people waste that energy on low-level, irrelevant choices before their day even begins. What to wear, what to eat, what to do first. By the time they actually get to the work that matters, their brain is already taxed. That's why I eliminate as many decisions as possible in the morning. I kill decision fatigue before it has the chance to interfere with higher-level thinking. I do this by automating everything that doesn't require creativity or deep focus. This includes what I wear, what I eat for breakfast, the first few steps of my day, and even the general flow of my morning routine. These things are pre-decided. They live on rails. There's no thinking required, just execution. That saves my brain for the real problems that need solving. When you automate decisions, you're not being robotic. You're being strategic. Think of it like system design. Every unnecessary choice is a piece of clutter in your mental workspace. If you walk into your day and immediately start making micro decisions, you're burning cognitive fuel that should be saved for high-stakes tasks. Elon Musk famously wears the same type of clothes regularly, not because he lacks style, but because he refuses to waste mental bandwidth on what he calls trivial nonsense. That principle applies beyond clothing. Breakfast, same thing every day. Exercise, scheduled, not improvised. First task of the day, already written down the night before. These may seem like small things, but they create exponential clarity over time. Every morning, instead of wondering what to do, I just do. My mind is clean. My energy is preserved. I can use my full mental horsepower on things that actually move the needle. Planning before I think means I prepare the day before the day begins. I don't wake up and then start figuring out what matters. That's reaction mode. That's how most people live. They wake up, check their phone, and start letting the world tell them what's urgent. I flip that model. The night before, I write down exactly what needs to be done the next morning. I use a simple system, one high-priority task, one medium-priority task, and one low-priority task. That's it. No overwhelming lists. No endless goals. Just what actually matters in order. This pre-planning forces me to evaluate what really deserves my energy. It creates a deliberate intention instead of chasing after urgency. The first hour of the day is sacred. That's when I have the most clarity, the most energy, and the fewest distractions. But if I spend that hour making decisions instead of executing, I'm wasting the advantage. That's why I make sure that when I wake up, I don't have to figure anything out. I just follow the plan. Think of it like launching a rocket. You don't decide the flight path after takeoff. The trajectory is locked in beforehand. The rocket simply executes. That's how I treat my mornings. If I have to think about what to do when I'm still half asleep, I'm already behind. The decisions are already made. The route is already set. And all I have to do is move forward. There's also a psychological shift that happens when you follow a plan that you built yourself. It reinforces agency. You're not a passenger in your own day. You're the pilot. Every time I follow my pre-made decisions, I'm reminding myself that I'm in control, that I run the system doesn't run me. This gives me momentum, and that momentum bleeds into everything else. When you start the day by executing without hesitation, your confidence builds naturally. You feel sharper, quicker, more decisive. That creates a feedback loop of discipline and execution that compounds across the rest of the day. Another benefit of killing decision fatigue is that it lowers anxiety. A lot of people walk around with a constant low-level stress, not because life is chaotic, but because their minds are cluttered with unmade choices. When everything's undecided, everything feels urgent. That's mental chaos. By front-loading those decisions and removing as much ambiguity as possible, I create a calm internal environment. I don't worry about what's next. I already know. That mental calm creates space for creativity and problem-solving, the things that actually create results. The clearer your mind, the better your output. This is why I don't leave the morning to chance. I design it. I engineer it. Because that first hour sets the tone for the next 16. If I use it to react, the day owns me. If I use it to execute, I own the day. And owning the day starts with removing friction, removing guesswork, and removing the clutter of low-value decisions. Input equals output. That's not just a productivity phrase. It's a foundational principle for how I operate. What you put into your brain first thing in the morning shapes how you think, how you feel, and what kind of decisions you make throughout the day. Most people wake up and start feeding their brain junk. They scroll through news feeds, notifications, and random videos with no intention. They consume before they create, and they wonder why they feel anxious, distracted, and directionless before they've even left the house. What you put in first is what your brain builds on. If you start your morning with garbage input, you're programming your mind to operate at a low frequency. That affects your focus, your creativity, and your performance. That's why I'm ruthlessly intentional about what I feed my brain in the first hour of the day. I treat it like fuel, clean, sharp, useful, because I expect my mind to operate at a high level, and high-level performance requires high-level input. The brain is like a sponge in the morning. It's not fully cluttered yet. It hasn't been hit with 100 decisions or external noise. It's clear, open, and ready to absorb. So I take advantage of that window. I don't let randomness or algorithms decide what enters my head. I choose what goes in. Sometimes that's reading a few pages of a book on systems thinking or psychology. Other times, it's listening to a powerful idea or reviewing notes I made the night before. What matters is the quality and intentionality of the input. I'm not looking for entertainment. I'm looking for clarity. I'm not looking for stimulation. I'm looking for alignment. If the input doesn't sharpen me, it doesn't make the cut. I know that the first mental meal of the day has the power to direct how I interpret everything that comes after. There's also a filtering mechanism that happens when you feed your brain hive. You content first. It sets the tone for your mental filters. When I've consumed a deep insight, a big idea, or a strategic concept first thing in the morning, I naturally start to see everything else through that lens. It primes my brain for depth over noise. That's incredibly valuable, especially in a world where most of what we see and hear is designed to distract, not empower. When you take control of your input, you take control of your narrative. You stop reacting and start directing. That's the mindset I want going into every decision I make throughout the day. Another thing I do is review my goals, not in some cheesy motivational way, but in a clear, numbers-driven format. I remind myself of what actually matters, what I'm building, and why it's important. I look at metrics. I look at progress. I ask hard questions. Am I on track? What's the bottleneck? What's the next key move? This kind of mental input reminds me that I'm not just busy, I'm building. It's too easy to get caught in a cycle of activity without clarity. Reviewing key data, key outcomes, and core drivers brings me back to center. It turns vague ambition into concrete focus. And that kind of mental framing influences every action I take afterward. What I don't do in the morning is just as important as what I do. I don't check social media. I don't watch the news. I don't let messages dictate my mood. Those things can wait. They'll be there later. But the clarity I have in the morning, that can't be recovered once it's lost. So I protect it. I shield my brain from chaos until I've built the foundation for the day. That foundation starts with what I put in. Clean input creates sharp output. Sloppy input creates confusion. I don't leave that to chance. There's also a physical component to input. What I put into my body affects what I get from my brain, so I keep my nutrition clean in the morning, nothing heavy, nothing that spikes or crashes energy. Simple, reliable fuel, water, light protein, maybe black coffee, maybe not. The point is consistency. I want my body to be in sync with my mind, not fighting against it. When my physical state is calm and clean, my mind follows. Everything is connected. When you start the day with precision and purpose, you build momentum that most people never experience. They're too busy recovering from chaotic mornings to ever get ahead. This isn't about perfection. It's about leverage. Feeding your brain the right input first thing gives you leverage over distraction, over confusion, over fatigue. It's a small shift that creates massive downstream effects. It's like writing the first line of code in a program. If it's clean, everything that follows can run smoothly. If it's messy, the whole thing crashes later. I've learned that the brain is programmable. It listens to what you feed it. So I make sure that the first thing it hears is something that builds, not something that breaks. Momentum is everything. Most people wait for motivation before they take action, but I reverse that process. I build motivation through action. The fastest way to generate forward energy is to stack a quick, early win right at the beginning of the day. That win doesn't have to be big. It just has to be intentional, fast, and done with precision. This creates motion, and motion creates clarity. When I wake up, I'm not asking myself how I feel. I'm not sitting around waiting for inspiration. I'm engineering momentum by doing something that reinforces progress. It could be a short mental task, a physical routine, or knocking out a priority that's been sitting on my list. The point is to break inertia. I refuse to start the day in a passive state. I started in motion. The human brain is built for progress. It craves completion. It responds to movement, and it rewards action with dopamine. So if I can create that response early, I set the chemical and psychological tone for everything that follows. One of the biggest mistakes people make is thinking their day has to feel right before they can start doing the hard things. That's backwards. The feeling comes after the movement. It's like launching a rocket. You don't wait for it to feel ready. You fire the engine and generate the power needed to escape gravity. That's how momentum works. You don't wait for it, you build it, one move at a time, one win at a time. I choose something in the morning that I can complete with intensity and focus. It could be a set of push-ups, a cold shower, or a quick mental challenge like reviewing a tough concept or solving a micro problem related to one of my goals. What matters is not the task itself, but the state it creates. The goal is to shift from passive to aggressive, from idle to engaged. I want my nervous system awake, my focus activated, and my inner narrative aligned with action. This early win tells my brain, we're not reacting today, we're building. And once that switch is flipped, the rest of the day has a foundation of momentum to stand on. Momentum isn't just about speed, it's about trajectory. One small win, executed deliberately, creates a sense of direction. It gives you a vector. It doesn't matter how far you go in that first hour. What matters is the angle you choose to start on. That angle compounds. If you start at a low angle, distracted, drifting, unsure of what matters, you stay in the fog all day. But if you start with intensity and clarity, even in a small area, that signal grows louder. You begin to filter your choices differently. You think more aggressively. You eliminate faster. You take more deliberate steps. That's the power of momentum. It sharpens your internal GPS. There's also a confidence element. Early wins build trust in yourself. If I start the day by doing something difficult or disciplined, I reinforce the belief that I'm a person who follows through. And when you reinforce that belief day after day, it becomes identity. You start seeing yourself as someone who gets things done, not later, not eventually, but now. That identity becomes armor against procrastination. It becomes fuel when things get hard later in the day. You've already proven to yourself, in the first 30 minutes, that you're not soft. That matters more than most people realize. It's not just a habit. It's character training. Sometimes my first win of the day is finishing something I delayed the day before. Not because it's huge, but because it's mentally cluttering my headspace. Clearing that task immediately releases mental REM. It opens up space. It feels like closing a background app on your phone that's draining battery. And as soon as that's done, my thinking becomes sharper. That's another benefit of momentum. It's not just about starting, it's about clearing friction. Every completed task removes resistance. Every forward step clears the fog. Momentum also spills into relationships and leadership. If I'm in motion, focused, decisive, and building energy, the people around me feel it. Energy is contagious. If you show up slow, uncertain, or overwhelmed, your team absorbs that. But if you show up sharp, in motion, already executing, they follow your pace. That's why leaders can't afford slow starts. You set the tempo, and tempo is often the difference between average performance and exponential growth. There's a psychological edge that comes from knowing you've already created progress before most people have had their first coffee. It creates separation. It creates altitude. You're not starting the day on your heels. You're starting on your toes, already moving forward. And once that forward motion is built, it takes less energy to keep it going. It's easier to steer a moving car than a parked one. That's what this early win does. It moves the car, it starts the engine, it eliminates the stall, and once that's done, I'm not thinking about if I'm going to execute the rest of the day. I'm thinking about how far I can take it. Most people start their day checking how they feel. They use emotion as a compass. If they feel tired, they move slow. If they feel stressed, they avoid challenge. If they feel unmotivated, they coast. That's a weak system. I don't trust my feelings to dictate performance. Feelings are volatile. They fluctuate with sleep, weather, news, hormones, and distractions. Data doesn't lie. Systems don't panic. That's why I check systems, not feelings. I ask myself, what's the plan? What's the process? What are the metrics? This removes emotion from the driver's seat and puts performance in its place. I don't need to feel like a leader to act like one. I need to follow the system I already built. That's where consistency lives. In engineering, you don't judge progress based on mood. You judge it based on measurable data points. I apply the same principle to life. Check the systems, then move. The power of this is massive. When you build a system and hold yourself accountable to it, you eliminate 90% of the friction that derails people. You don't ask, do I feel like working out today? You execute the plan that says, work out at 7 a.m. no matter what. You don't ask, am I in the right mindset to focus today? You check your inputs, your sleep, your focus blocks, and then you dive in. Systems give you clarity when emotions give you noise. Every morning, I run a quick check of key systems. Sleep hours, energy level, hydration, workload priority, schedule tightness, mental clarity. I review what matters, not what feels urgent. That quick diagnostic gives me a readout on how to calibrate my effort. It tells me if I need to push harder, protect energy, adjust pacing, or make changes. It's not reactive, it's strategic. In a world obsessed with emotional validation, Choosing data over feelings is a competitive edge. Most people are owned by their moods. If they wake up and feel sluggish, they let that define the entire tone of their day. But the reality is, most of that feeling is just chemical, a poor night of sleep. A lack of hydration, mental clutter, none of it means you're broken. It just means your system needs tuning. That's why I trust the numbers more than the narrative. I've built feedback loops into my habits. Not to micromanage myself, but to detect the truth beneath the emotion. Am I focused because my mind is clear, or because I got lucky with how I feel today? Am I slow because I'm tired, or because I didn't follow my process? Systems expose the root cause. They reveal what feelings conceal. This mindset creates resilience. It trains discipline. When I treat performance as a system to manage instead of an emotion to obey, I build trust in myself. I don't get caught in spirals of self-doubt or emotional overanalysis. I just adjust the system and keep moving. If a jet engine sputters mid-flight, the engineer doesn't ask the engine how it feels. He checks the system, temperature, pressure, fuel levels, exhaust, airflow. The same logic applies to your mind and body. When something feels off, I go straight to the dashboard. What's fueling me? What's draining me? What changed since yesterday? From that, I build a fix. I don't wait for motivation to return. I diagnose and deploy. This also impacts how I lead. Teams don't need emotional unpredictability. They need system-driven consistency. If a leader is ruled by mood, the whole organization operates in chaos. But if the leader runs on principle, on systems, on clarity, then people feel secure. They trust the process because the process is reliable. I bring that mindset into every decision, every meeting, every challenge. I don't ask, do I feel ready to lead today? I check the system I built, my role, my values, my actions. Then I lead. It's not about pretending to be robotic. It's about refusing to let emotional randomness undermine real progress. Checking systems also builds efficiency. I don't waste time wondering what's wrong when I feel off. I already know where to look. I've built a personal dashboard, not just with metrics like sleep and nutrition, but also performance markers. Am I sticking to my time blocks? Am I delivering value in each meeting? Am I getting distracted at predictable times? These are things I track, not obsessively, but precisely, enough to know the difference between a system issue and an emotional flare. This kind of operational awareness saves me from unnecessary spirals. I don't fight with my feelings. I override them with process, and that process becomes my foundation. It lets me perform even on days when motivation is at zero. It lets me make clear decisions even when the environment is noisy. It lets me stay calibrated in high-pressure situations because I'm not relying on hype or adrenaline. I'm relying on structure. I don't get derailed by how I feel in the moment because I've already decided in advance how I will act. That's the power of system-first thinking. Feelings are valuable signals, but they're not final instructions. Data drives decisions, discipline executes them, and systems sustain them. Most people spend their mornings avoiding pressure. They try to ease into the day, stay comfortable, avoid friction, keep things light. That's not how you build dominance. That's how you stay soft. I do the opposite. I visualize pressure. Then I run toward it. Before the world throws problems at me, I identify the most critical point of impact and direct my energy there. The hard conversation, the complicated decision, the high-leverage move that carries risk. I don't delay it. I don't let it sit and build anxiety. I stare it in the face first thing in the morning and make it my priority. Because the longer you delay pressure, the heavier it becomes. The weight doesn't go away, it compounds. But when you face it early, it shrinks. You break the illusion. You take control. There's something powerful about choosing to lean into the hardest part of your day, while everyone else is still trying to warm up. It rewires your brain to associate pressure with progress instead of pain. It becomes a signal, not a threat, a green light, not a red flag. The more I repeat that process, the stronger that pattern becomes. My brain doesn't flinch at challenge, it locks in. That shift in wiring gives me a huge advantage, especially in high-stakes environments where hesitation is costly. People who avoid pressure live in reaction mode. They wait, they stall, they overthink. By the time they act, the opportunity's already moved. I train myself to move toward tension, not away from it. That makes me faster, sharper, more dangerous. In the first hour of my day, I identify what I call the pressure point. It's not always the biggest task. It's the one with the most psychological resistance, the one I'm most likely to rationalize away. That's how I know it's the one I need to hit first. It could be a phone call, a high-risk email, a piece of strategy that needs clarity. Whatever it is, I don't wait to feel ready. I take aim and engage. The win isn't always in finishing the task. Sometimes the win is in facing it, in refusing to let fear, doubt, or resistance dictate my action. That's how you build the kind of mental strength most people never touch. You run toward the thing that everyone else avoids. Pressure reveals who's built for more. That's why I simulate it. I don't wait for chaos. I create controlled challenges. I ask myself questions like, what would I do if my timeline got cut in half? How would I operate if this was my last shot? What would it take to turn this into a 10x outcome instead of a 1x result? These aren't soft questions. They introduce pressure by design, but that pressure activates something powerful. It pulls out creativity, urgency, and precision. It breaks autopilot. It forces evolution. I don't want to just go through the motions every day. I want to push edges, and the fastest way to find those edges is through pressure. Another benefit of facing pressure early is emotional control. When I choose my pressure, I stop letting the world choose it for me. Most people wake up and eventually get hit by some kind of problem or demand they didn't see coming. That puts them in defensive mode. But when I start the day by stepping into something uncomfortable on purpose, I've already built emotional momentum. I've already reinforced to myself that I'm the one applying pressure, not receiving it. That shift makes me more stable, more focused, more resilient. I'm not just reacting to difficulty. I'm using it as a weapon. I've also learned that pressure and opportunity live in the same space. Wherever I feel the most resistance is usually where the biggest upside exists. That's why I don't avoid it. I seek it. Pressure is an indicator. It tells me where the leverage is. Most people see a hard task and try to get it out of the way quickly or delay it entirely. I see a hard task and ask, what's buried in here? What's the reward hiding behind this discomfort? That framing changes everything. It turns pressure into potential, and potential is the currency of growth. There's also a tactical edge to this mindset. When I've already tackled the hardest part of my day by 9 a.m., everything else feels light. Meetings don't intimidate me, emails don't stress me, curveballs don't throw me off. I've already climbed the hill, I've already lifted the weight. That early confrontation with difficulty creates a cascade effect. The rest of the day gets smoother, more focused, more efficient. It's like building armor first thing in the morning. Nothing else hits as hard because I've already taken the biggest punch. I don't romanticize pressure. I respect it. I use it. I treat it like training. Just like lifting heavy builds strength, facing hard things builds capability. You don't get mentally strong by avoiding the hard stuff. You get strong by leaning into it over and over until your threshold changes. What once felt crushing now feels like a war. Mup, that's growth. That's edge. That's how you separate from the average. You stop dodging the pressure. You run straight into it and learn to breathe inside the fire.